So today's main topic is all about the importance of environment on creativity. Okay, so we've been talking about whether people are or aren't creative, what creativity is today, but now I want to really talk about the environment that we have and its impact on creativity. So where I'd like to start is thinking about what your ideal environment would be in order to be creative. Okay, this doesn't mean that it has to be what exists in your real life, because it probably won't be. But what would your ideal setup be for your own creativity? Jared, can I start with you?
Sure. My ideal setup for creativity would be a soundproof room where people can only address me by sliding letters under the door.
Ooh, I like it.
And there is a minstrel / bard in the corner that will play medieval Renaissance etudes and fugues for me. And yeah, that's like prime creativity for me. I feel like I could really make some cool stuff.
How's the air circulation in the room?
There's also somebody with a big leaf to make sure there's some circulation as
Wow,
well.
that's great.
Yeah.
Jared, for your minstrel, I will find you a copy somewhere I have of a medieval recreation of a group doing Toxicity.
Whoa. Okay.
It is incredible.
All right. I love medieval recreations.
Okay, for you, Teresa, what's an ideal environment for your creativity?
I would want a cabin in the woods, windows open, breeze blowing through. You hear the stream outside. I might have a small music player near me to kind of keep a single song on repeat, because that's how my brain works. I would want zero distractions, very clean, open space, and a whiteboard.
And a whiteboard. That's cool.
Wow. Just installed a whiteboard back at the Lingle home yesterday. Ideas will flow.
What colored pens do you need? Just like one expo marker? You got multiple colors
I
you
would
gotta
need
use?
to have gobs of color, because sometimes I need to be able to link different things to certain things, show the relationship, show the lack of change, the different changes. I'd need
color
lots of
coding
variation.
is definitely necessary. Okay, what about you, Mark? What's an ideal creative environment for you?
Ideal creative environment for me would be probably out on some type of an outdoor porch or deck overlooking nature of some kind, maybe a river or something. It's very specific, but quiet morning, like in the summertime, it'd be like 5:30 or 6 a.m. I know Justin calls me the grand master of getting up. So
This is true.
I like it early.
100% this is true.
When the world is sleeping, I feel very creative and inspired. And so something like that. And I would just need a sketchbook and maybe some headphones in with some instrumental music or something like that, so I can ride the waves of my imagination.
As you like to say.
Yeah. That's probably it. What I do in my real life, though, is a little bit different.
I'm not ready for that yet. Let me talk about my dream.
Shut down. I just got shut down.
I feel like I actually have the most different idea of what my ideal creative environment
Crowding
is.
shopping mall.
Kind of. I mean, I would like to be in a place with more people. The excess background noise is kind of nice for me. If it's too quiet, my brain talks too much. So if there's lots of people around, I feel like it kind of keeps my internal chatter in check a little bit more. And also, I would want to have somebody next to me who adores me, so that as I get through step one of I can show them and they can be like, yes, good job.
Here's a handful of gummy bears.
Right, here's a snack.
A quick validation. I cannot do work with, that's not true. I do much better working with an accountability partner of some sort. If I'm left to my own devices, I won't do anything. If there's somebody who can say, do you need me to check in on you on that? Make sure it gets done. I'm like, yes, please. If I've got someone who's expecting to hear about my progress and can give me some validation that I've done well, I'm much more likely to actually be creative and get that done. And yes, of course, there should always be a pairing of something that I'm consuming. I will almost always consume something while I'm creating. I don't know why, but pairing a snack to a creative endeavor is important to me.
So extroversion
Yes.
and affirmation
Yes.
are two very strong components of your creative environment.
Yes.
Right? Because you're extroverted and you like the words of affirmation and you like the, okay, that makes sense.
I'm just extroverted too much to the point of not being able to be creative if there are other people in the room. I just like want to talk to them and, be social.
Yes.
You're the Labrador puppy
Oh my goodness.
of creativity.
Truer words have never been said.
Okay, Mark. Now let's hear what it's actually like for you. So if that was your ideal environment, tell me what your actual creative environment looks like right now.
Well, one of the things I've learned about myself is that it's not always the same. And so depending on the task, I will go into different environments.
Okay.
When I'm engineering something like a game or some of the things that we're working on, I like to have the sketchbook. I like to have the headphones in, but I like to go to a coffee shop and then drown out everybody that's in there. But I like to be able to be visually stimulated by what I'm seeing, but not engage. Right. So it's like I'm observing from a safe distance.
But
what's
shields
happening.
up.
Yeah, shields up, big time, bubble, unapproachable. A lot of people say, you're really focused because I kind of get this knit in my brow right here when I'm
We've never
concentrating.
noticed.
But I like being in a setting where there's other people because it feels lively, it feels alive, and I can there's little pieces that I pick up that kind of inspire me about what I'm seeing. And so that's how I do that. But there are other times when I'm working at home by myself and I don't want that visual attention. I don't need to go into a quiet room that's like padded walls and all of that, but I like the quiet and the silence to really be able to focus strongly and not be distracted, because distractions, I think, feel like they slow me down a little bit. But when I'm working for a client, maybe in the branding world, sometimes I need to go out and almost from a research perspective, put myself in a position where I can understand what it's like to be that customer or to be that client in their space. Maybe it's outdoors in the woods, or maybe it's in a very busy industrial warehouse, or wherever it is. I need to envision and feel a little bit what that's like so that my brain can start making connections. And that, to me, I feel like is a creative environment where I'm trying to do something on behalf of someone else. And so I'm kind of a conduit. And so I jump around a little bit, and then I'm trying to be creative with my daughters. It's something different. And so I kind of have a few things that I've tried. And I think to be really creative, and maybe this is leading to something else that you're going to get at, but I feel like you should always have a certain amount of space dedicated to trying something new and going into a new environment, even if it's not something that you're used to and it's not tried and true, to be like, well, I'm going to try to go be creative in this other space and see what that gives you, because sometimes you won't accomplish what you were hoping for, but you will accomplish something that you didn't expect to. And so that's been an interesting thing that I've learned.
So what about you, Teresa? We had the idea of what your ideal environment looked like, but what's your actual creative environment like?
My actual creative environment is a very small room that we call the office in my house, which is not very big at all. Small desk, a door that shuts with a cat that screams if the door is shut. So the door is never shut. And then there is a small bit of couch that is more of like a little lounge thing. So I'm supposed to sit at the desk, right? But laptop in my lap, sitting on the couch, just kind of pounding out stuff.
You looked like the cat there pounding out things.
Yeah, because obviously I work like a cat.
Do you scream when the door's shut?
I scream just in general. No, but something that Mark said that is very similar is there was, at one point I was writing a story and there was a character I couldn't quite figure out. There was just aspects of their background I couldn't figure out. And I was sitting in the lobby of the Ace Hotel in downtown Portland, just because I felt like that was going to be a good place to people watch and do additional research. And as I'm trying to figure out some nuance and aspects about this character, just a person walks in and I start like, that's him. That's the character. And like figuring out everything. And he like turns back and looks at me, and I look back down real quick at my book and look back up. Okay. This is how he walks. And
You've stolen his soul is what's happened.
I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Siphoned. I like siphoned.
Siphoned.
Yeah, siphoned. Just what he didn't realize is
Energy sucks.
She's got a box of straws next to her. She's like, there's another one. siphoned. Sorry,
Soul
no, that's
siphoned.
terrifying. Soul siphoning.
Then quickly dispensed into a voodoo doll.
Okay, Jared, what about you? How does do you have any real life bards that come into your creative environment or?
No, I do not. Well, I mean, we've got the internet, so we've got infinite access to all music from every era, which is crazy. Justin and I, a few days ago, were talking about how insane it is that we have like reference of the musical genres that are in the decades surrounding our existence, and that if you were born in like 1700, the music of 1680 would not have been. You wouldn't have been privy to it. It's very interesting. But my personal creative space is a little similar to what I have described because I have indeed put some pads on the walls.
I know. I like how you said it was soundproofing, and Mark's like, your padded room.
Yeah, I literally have sound foam up on the walls to help out. But yeah, it used to be my bedroom is now kind of like a little mini home studio. And the soundproofing is pretty good, but I've got some nice over-the-ear headphones. Love listening to cinematic, orchestral, instrumental stuff. Anything without words, because words is just, like I said before, way too distracting. Won't be able to think about the internal monologues going on. But the actual like time of my creativity also is super specific because I have a newborn at home, and or I guess not newborn, he's 4.5 months now, but it is my creativity is between the hours of 10 and 1 a.m. or I will get up with Mark at 5 or 6 and we'll work until Lindy and the kids wake up, or Lindy and the kid. Jesus. Oh, Lindy and the kid wakes up at 8:30.
Did you hear the crazy in that laugh?
One day, but I'm just so scared about that. Oh my goodness, jeez Louise. But yeah, basically, so there's that. That's my primary space for creativity. But as you could tell, there were only a couple of hours that I just listed, and several more hours every given day of work that needs to be done. And so, my creative space is also every spare second where someone is not talking to me. And, I'm walking through the house or I'm in the car and there's like a moment of silence, and I will just take that and go, okay, so what is going on with this group of people who are living in these trees? And, I will start like working on whatever I'm working on, spoiler free though. And so, at a certain point when you aren't in complete control of your entire schedule, you have to steal those moments that you can to be as creative as possible.
Good point.
My
Very
big
good point.
takeaway, the times you are not working are 1 a.m. and then Mark gets up at 5. So those are that 4-hour gap is where sleep occurs.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, sometimes if Liam decides, but he slept pretty good last night, but the last couple of weeks it's been like, every hour.
Yeah, I remember that.
Babies.
Yep.
I would say that the way that I have my creative environment set up is fairly similar to my ideal when possible. I mean, obviously the last year and a half, 2 years has kind of put a damper in that. I loved when back before the world was changed, and I could work 2 hours here and then move to a new coffee shop and 2 hours there and then go home and work 2 hours. Because Mark, what you talked about earlier was this idea that when you had different types of tasks, different environments suited that better. So when I'm doing production type work where I have to actually put my head down and get through some stuff, like let's say I'm putting together like a social media strategy audit report, right? I do need quiet and I do need to be alone to do those kind of activities. And so I need to be able to be at home in my own space, just with my head down, pumping things out. I can't do that kind of thing at a coffee shop. So the energy of the space that you're in, I think, is important too. If we had our ideal situation, when I was doing something that was more idea generation, I would be in a space where there was lots of things to spark ideas, a coffee shop where there's lots of people coming in and out and there's background noise and there's smells and whatever. But sometimes, I do need that kind of quiet space. And it has been hard for me a lot the last 2 years trying to trying to cultivate situations that allow for those different types of creativity. Do I move from just one room? Do I move chairs, right? Like, do you move from your desk to your comfy chair back to your desk as you're changing activities? That has been really necessary for me over the last year and a half.
One of the things I've noticed just having worked with creatives for so long is a lot of young creative professionals need the perfect environment to feel like they can actually move forward. And I think that's a strong limitation. And one of the things I've noticed actually with you, Lacey, is that you have trained yourself to push through and be creative in different environments. And I think you can train yourself to be productive even in an environment that's not ideal. And I think that's part of maturing as a creative professional. And I think also it has applications to those who are not in a creative profession but just want to be more creative. It's picking your times and kind of going with the flow and being flexible and giving yourself some grace that maybe you're not going to get everything done that you wanted to, but you're going to make some baby step progress. Those are like bold adult moves, right? Like to take yourself out of your comfort zone and push forward anyway, because you pick up things as you go. You nickel and dime, and those things add up over time, and you learn something about yourself. And so that's really interesting. And when I've watched you do that, I've watched you sit on the floor in places with your laptop out and work. And I think to myself, I could never do that. And how limiting is that, right? I could do that if I needed to, or if I had to.
If
I
you
trained
could sit
myself
on the
to.
floor, you know.
If I could bring myself to sit
Does
on the
his knees
nasty
not
floor that
work?
you sit on.
But
I don't know. I just like to dig.
So you being able to work anywhere but needing different environments, it reminds me of one of the most formative set of projects I did in college, where it was for one of my narrative classes, and it was having somebody tell you a story and then recognizing the story they tell you is based off of where you guys are, your relationship to them, how they're feeling that moment. And like all of those extraneous factors come into whatever random thing they tell you about. And so for you, like, what aspect of creativity are you tapping into? That's you asking your body, tell me a story in this set of parameters, because we've got to get this project done.
Yeah, let's talk about those parameters for a minute too. Part of your environment, I think, is your own mental state too, right? And so are there different mental states that you are more creative in, or that you consistently find yourself being creative in? I mean, as an example, I think I have become very confident in my procrastination skills. Both in the fact
Well
that they will always show up, and that I can always accomplish what I need to in whatever amount of time is given. The number of times that I have just failed to complete something is, I don't know. Does it exist? I'm very confident in the fact that I could give myself 45 minutes to do whatever the task is that needs to be done, because it has to be done within that 45 minutes and turned in, and I'll get it done. And I could stew the whole night before about the fact that I've put it off and I only have this time in the morning to do it, but time and time and time and time again, I've accomplished things that way, that I am just becoming more and more confident in my ability to just do things in the quote unquote last minute before it's due, and that's not a problem. So have you all had similar experiences where, you know, you're getting yourself to the point where your mindset has to be a certain way in order to finish your creativity? Or is that not as, I don't know if I'm asking the question properly, but how's your mental state play into your creativity?
I think it depends on, more of the task, right? Like, so when I was having to, during my graduate work, having to sit and figure out what I had to do to get a statistics problem figured out. Like, there is a certain amount of creativity required to train your mind to do new things, to learn new tasks. And I had to stop saying, well, I'm not going to need to know how to do this thing. This is not something, I don't need to know how long it takes a truck to get through this kind of setup, And stopping and going, no, this is a creative thing, and learning how to solve this problem. This specific problem is going to help me, but learning how to problem solve in general is. And just reforming that allowed my brain to go, I got this. But I had to get out of my grumpy little curmudgeon-y self and kind of get into a better, more receptive spot.
More open.
Yeah.
I watched a TED Talk on the concept of slow motion multitasking. I know we've talked about it internally. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show before, but I have found that basically stopping work when I'm not being productive on a specific task is helpful, because my mentality is to overwork, and so I'm kind of unlearning that. But if you've got 16 progress bars that you're moving forward on, and you're driving on one and you're just hitting the wall, jump to a different track, flow to a different track, and move that one forward, and then come back to that one. That kind of interchange, I think, has been helpful for me. But also, there's a time when you just kind of need to not do any of it. Maybe not from a procrastination standpoint, but I think a lot of people tend to be so driven by the result or by the timeline or the deadline or whatever pressure they're putting on themselves that they're not really necessarily living in good balance. And that's kind of been I don't take very good care of myself historically. Like, I don't eat, I don't take breaks. So I'm learning to do that. And what I find is I'm actually more effective when I am working. So I actually get more done in less time. So I'm wasting time when I don't do that. So overwork is bad across the board. And so that's kind of been my story.
What about you, Jared? How important is your mental state in regards to your creativity as an environmental factor?
Well, I am a hodgepodge of everybody who has spoken already. In regards to where you're at, Lacey, I am in the space where I'd say fairly often my procrastination takes hold of me. The primary motivator behind my procrastination is that when I know that a project has like a lot of stuff to do, that just doing that very first step is the thing that gets procrastinated. And that the times where I choose to, a week before something it needs to be done, get started and do a couple of the initial steps, that I have so much less anxiety, and I'm able to spend that time that I was talking about earlier about when you are stealing those moments of creativity. You could spend that time working on those problems that you would be forced to deal with, the moment that it comes to you when you have completely procrastinated everything. I obviously have tons of experience with procrastination. It's been my primary modus operandi for most of my life, but I've been trying to overcome it. I would say that in regards to my mentality while being actually creative, I'm constantly prompting myself with questions to try to move beyond where I am stuck. So if I'm stuck trying to figure out, what is the perfect 4-word thing for this person to say, because I only have 4 words of space on this card, that racking my brain and asking different questions about this person and trying to better understand them can provide with that level of insight into what you actually need to do by prompting yourself. And I think that the kind of meditative quiet where you can kind of conversate with yourself and ask yourself questions is my most effective creative mindset, is when I can be like bouncing off of myself and ask myself questions.
Do you ever stare in the mirror and just look at your own eyes?
No, but I do stare at the ground into my mind palace while I'm trying to
Staring
think.
is a family thing. I'm picking up on that.
Oh, is it just me that stares in the mirror in my own? Okay. All right. We're doing fine. Okay. Well, good conversation. Does anybody have any final points before we close up?
Well, I know we've talked about, taking breaks and pauses and different progress bars as you referred to it. And kind of backing that up from a research standpoint, of course, I've got a point. There is a book I read a while ago now by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. And one of the things he references is that like athletes or musicians who are trying to get to that next thing and their body just isn't doing it. When they stop and they get a very good night's sleep and approach it the first thing in the morning, they didn't get it right last night, but over that night, their brain has restructured and re-engineered and developed greater neuroplasticity. And in the morning, they hit that note. They get that step. Like that thing they were trying to do the night before that they weren't getting. Practice didn't make perfect. Their brain, boom, nailed it.
It's a good point. Yeah, he actually refers to being awake as low-level brain damage. And when you sleep, it's recovery. So when you're trying to solve problems and use your brain and be creative, you kind of want that at the highest level you can get it. And sleep is a very, very important part of that. In fact, more so than I had ever thought too.
Wow, that I have not heard that before, but saying that, people talk about your brain and all of it being a muscle, and that just really, really intrigues me. That's a very cool idea, because everybody knows that growth in your muscles is damage. That if my biceps are going to get stronger, that I have to damage them by working them harder than they currently are able to go. God, that's so cool.
It also it reminds me of the conversation we had quite a ways back on the podcast about the creative process, and how you can start working on things, but then there is a point where you have to put it on the back burner to let those like roots grow down of an idea and a project before the tree of the idea can actually grow up and produce
support
leaves.
its own weight.
You got it.
I was envisioning a tree growing on the back burner of my stove. When I told that story, and it was actually pretty cool.
Careful,
You should clean your stove more often if there's that much debris.
That much-
say
that much
careful. Or
growth.
I'll come poach from Mark's community garden and
His community stove.
That dirty Mac.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for sitting here with me. This was really nice. I love being able to have these conversations. For those of you who are listening, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as well. If you have any friends, and you think that this conversation might be interesting to them as well, you can share that. If you want to do us a favor, you can leave us a review on the podcast. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, hit that button. And if you want to talk to us about some of these topics, we're going to be talking about them within the Outpost community on Facebook and within the Outpost thread on our Discord channel. So come find us there. We would love to chat a little bit more about this and find out your opinions on Dirty Mac as well.
And if you don't have any friends, we'll be your friends.
All right. Thank you all for your time. We hope that you stay inspired, you keep making things, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.